We are now at Psalms chapter 95, verse 2. Thank you for joining me. It's a nice snowy, slushy day out here, but anyways, we're still here. Let us come before His presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto Him with psalms. Notes. We are given here a wonderful directive by the Holy Spirit concerning the approach of the believer to God. It is to be with thanksgiving and singing. Verse 3. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. Notes. Creation rest, redemption rest, and millennial rest are all based upon the person and work of Christ. Faith brings us into these rests, and unbelief actually excludes us from these. Verse 4. In His hand are the deep places of the earth. The strength of the hills is His also. Notes. Well, this means that God is Lord over hell and also over the entirety of the earth. He is the Lord of everything. Verse 5. The sea is His, and He made it, and His hands formed the dry land. Notes. Over and over again, the Holy Spirit refutes the lie of evolution. God is the creator of all, and He deserves to be worshipped by all. Verse 6. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. Notes. This verse is the great invitation to come to Christ. He is God's rest, an ineffable rest at that. And how wonderful is the grace that invites sinners to share God's rest. This is a rest that can never be disturbed. Its wonders are developed by the God of glory Himself. Hebrews chapter 3 through 4. Verse 7. For He is our God, and we are His people of His pasture, and the sheep of His hand. Today, if you will hear His voice. Notes. Now this passage is quoted in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 7 through 11, and chapter 4, verse 7. Now what a privilege it is to say that He is our God and that we are His people of His pasture. And as well, the expression, the sheep of His hand, this refers to our being made by Him. It has a far greater meaning than if a shepherd purchases sheep. In this instance, it means that God created the sheep of His hand. Accordingly, we are admonished to hear His voice, the voice of the shepherd. If you will hear Him today, you shall be saved. Verse 8. Harden not your heart as in the provocation, and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness. Notes. Well, the wilderness was a long, trying time for Israel, and regrettably, it was a proving time that Israel failed very regrettably. Verse 9. When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work. Notes. Israel tempted the Lord in the wilderness and refused to believe even though they actually saw Him right there and His work. Verse 10, 40 years long was I grieved with this generation and said, it is a people who do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. Notes. Israel challenged God to provide a table for them in the desert, and when it was provided, declared that Pharaoh's was better, so they desired to appoint a captain to return to Egypt. That's back in Numbers chapter 14, verse 3 through 4. Verse 11, unto whom I swore in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest. Note, the very greatest sin of all could be the sin of faithlessness. The entire fabric of the plan of God demands faith. Men forsake God because they don't believe God. In the wilderness, Israel showed a large amount of unbelief, and they died because of that unbelief and could not enter into God's rest. They never saw Jerusalem, they never saw Israel. Chapter 96, possibly written by David, a new song of praise to God. Verse 1, sing unto the Lord a new song, sing unto the Lord all the earth. Notes. Now, the setting of this right here seems to be at the very beginning of the millennial reign. Israel, having sung the previous psalm, now invites the nations to join her in a new song. Psalm 97 will be that song, and this new song belongs to the day when the kingdoms of the world shall become the kingdom of Jehovah and of His Christ. Documented in Revelation chapter 11, verse 15, and chapter 12, verse 10, just a few verses down. Verse 2, sing unto the Lord, bless His name, show forth His salvation from day to day. Notes. Now the doctrine of this psalm is that the advent of the Messiah into the world will take the world into a paradise, and that His rule alone can eliminate dissension, war, misery, and injustice, and furthermore, He's going to establish society in an enduring brotherhood. That enduring brotherhood will be His salvation. Verse 3, declare His glory among the heathen, His wonders among all people. Notes. Men can test the reality and credibility of this prophecy by surrendering their sinful hearts to the government of Emmanuel. They will then experience love, peace, and a moral power that their hearts were strangers to previous to conversion. And much of the world is presently steeped in demonic Islam, Hinduism, Spiritism, and other works of darkness. However, during the great coming kingdom age, the whole world will finally know of His glory. The fighting is going to be over. Verse 4, for the Lord is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. Notes. Now, Satan's great contest with God has always been to make himself God instead of God Himself. He has sought to do this through demon spirits, idol worship, false religion, and so on. Paul addressed himself to this in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, if I'm not mistaken. Verse 5 continuing. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Notes. Now, idols in the Hebrew is elalim, and means nothings, vanities, emptiness, things of naught. And regrettably, the far greater majority of the world serves these nothings, these emptinesses, instead of the Lord who created all things. It's such a short change to chop down a piece of wood, fashion it into a figure, and say that this is the very God who created the heavens and the earth. I mean, how stupid does that sound nowadays, but yet it still goes on. Verse 6, honor and majesty are before Him, strength and beauty are in His sanctuary. Notes. Now the emphasis is on the pronoun His. There are many other sanctuaries at present in the world, but they are false. And just as I stated, they are nothings. The only strength and beauty in the world are His sanctuary, which now refers to born-again believers serving as the temple of the Holy Spirit. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. We are now literally His temples. Verse 7. Give unto the Lord, O ye kindreds of the people, give unto the Lord glory and strength. Notes. Now right here, the nations of the world are invited to share in this strength and this beauty. They are invited to give the Lord of glory due His name instead of wasting it on blocks of wood that have been carved up and so on and so forth, on these idols, these worthless elalims, if you will. Verse 8. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto His name, bring an offering, and come into His courts. Notes. Now the latter half of this verse concerning the bringing of offerings, this refers to the prophecies of Zechariah. In the coming kingdom age, the nations of the world will come to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. They'd better read the consequences in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 16 through 19, and so on and so forth. They ain't going to get no rain. Verse 9. O worship the Lord in beauty of holiness. Fear before Him all the earth. Notes. In the coming kingdom age, Everything will be holiness, even the bells of the horses. Zechariah 14:20 documents that. Verse 10, tell among the heathen that the Lord reigns. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. Notes. Now, for the very first time, the world in its entirety will know government that is not corrupt, and it will be because the Lord reigns. He's not going to call it to the left, to the right, nor up or down. He's going to call it right down the middle and be fair with it. Verse 11, let the heavens rejoice and let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof. Notes. Now, when Christ reigns over the entirety of the planet, earth, in the glorious kingdom age, then the heavens can rejoice and the earth can be glad. The sea is going to be roaring, but not with anger, but with praises unto the Lord. And of course, this is sort of a figure of speech, if you will, pertaining to the seas of people that are going to be cheering for him. Verse 12, let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice. Note, for the first time since Lucifer's original fall, planet Earth will be in union with God because Christ actually reigns. Verse 13, before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. Notes, this is the judgment of the nations during the coming kingdom age. It's found in Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 through 46. It's alluded to a couple of times in Ezekiel, and it's also found in Joel chapter 3, verse 2, if I am not mistaken. But this is going to be the judgment of the nations, and it's one of God's major judgments concerning his people, Israel. I won't get too far into that because I ain't got much time here, but we're at Psalms chapter 97, picking up. The Lord reigns, let the earth rejoice, let the multitude of isles be glad thereof. Notes, now, as the previous psalm gave the invitation, this psalm proclaims its fulfillment. This is the new song that is spoken of in 96:1. It is new for earth, but not for heaven. It sings of a new day of humanity, a day of righteousness, peace, and brotherhood. It will dawn when God causes his first begotten to return to the earth on that great millennial morn and commands all angels to worship him. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 6. Verse 2. Clouds and darkness are round about him. Righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. Notes. Now, the reason we have all this great gladness on earth, and the seas being happy, and the wood dancing around, and, well, that's a figure of speech as well, but the reason for all this great gladness is because the righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. He's going to judge the world with fairness, and it's going to revolutionize the world. Verse 3, a fire goes before him, and burns up his enemies round about. Notes. Found in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 7 through 8, this will be the second coming at the Battle of Armageddon. Lucifer's army and him, they're all going to be wiped clean. It's not quite over with just yet. There's some things that have to go on. Verse 4, his lightnings enlightened the world. The earth saw and trembled. Notes. His second coming will be with such manifestations as the world has never seen before. The very heavens are going to be dancing with joy. Matthew chapter 24, verse 27, and 29 and 30 as well. And with that being said, we'll pick up in chapter 97, verse 5 of the book of Psalms. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye.